Today we're going to watch a viewer's gameplay of somebody who's a little bit newer to the game. He's got about 300 hours, so not a complete noob, but 300 hours is still kind of a noob in Total War because it's so freaking big. Today, Icefang has volunteered his footage. Thank you to him for doing that and being willing for me to share it with thousands of people watching him play and maybe struggle with the game. The idea here is that hopefully we can learn what newer players and people are doing wrong while playing Total War Warhammer, and maybe you're making these mistakes as well and you can fix them off the back of this video. That's the idea. Let's go. So, Elspeth campaign, normal. He's going to kick it off in traditional fashion, putting the hero in the army, and then he's going to move on to his first battle, which he is actually going to fight. Which, if you saw the last one of these, I recommend as a great thing to do if you're new, you're learning the game. These early battles that might seem really easy and you can just decisive victory auto-resolve them, just fight them. You're bound to learn something the more you play. Now, in this one, he's taken a nice defensive position up on the hill, but for some reason, he's put his artillery in the trees, and as we can see, his Hellstorm is hitting the trees, so that's a waste of ammo. And it also highlights another thing here, I think, about line of sight and things like cannons with low trajectories. Chances are they probably can't see anything where he's put them. Now, switching over to me playing here, just in custom battles to demonstrate this, I put the artillery roughly where he had it, and as we can see, the cannons can't really see a lot. They're a low trajectory unit. The angle is just all wrong here for them to actually hit anything. The Hellstorm, that kind of fires upwards, so it'll go over the brow of the hill. So he should have had his artillery outside of the trees. There's no advantage to them being in the trees, and all it's doing is wasting ammo by potentially hitting trees. You're not hiding when you're firing artillery in trees. It becomes visible when it starts firing, unless it has the snipe trait. As for a better spot for the cannons, you could put them something like here, just so they have perfect line of sight on the enemies that are coming, and they can blast away. Probably if those crypt horrors would be best. And just another detail, his army is currently kind of like this, but what he wants to do really is rotate and face the army properly to make them fight uphill. It's only a small detail, it's not going to change the course of the battle or anything, but it's just a little extra damage you can do if the enemy is fighting you uphill. If they're lower than you, you do more damage. But of course, no new player is going to know that because the game simply doesn't tell you. Now, back to Icefang's gameplay here. You can see he's positioned like this. He just wants to rotate a bit here. And giving his artillery orders on who to shoot, he goes for the crypt horrors. Great choice. That's the most dangerous unit in this enemy army. Take them out. Over here, though, he's trying to put his spearmen in the way of the dogs, but they're actually the wrong thing to deal with dogs. Spearmen are bonus versus large, of course, but dogs actually don't count as large, because it's actually the swordsman that'll do a better job of beating them up due to the spearman's lack of melee attack. And those spearmen should really be looking for those crypt horrors more than anyone. So far for Icefang, only a few minor mistakes, nothing major. Until now. He's hovering over the Dark Walker ability for Elspeth, which, if we read what it does, gives a 40% physical resistance, which is good to protect you from damage, and gives Strider, which is handy if you're trying to run up a hill or through a forest. Now, if we look at what Elspeth is up to, she's currently just stood on a hill, she's not running up it, she's not moving, she's not in any danger. He should not use this ability right now. He done did it, so that's a waste of that ability. He's now going to look at Aspect of the Dread Knight. Let's look at this spell, imbues magical attacks, which is handy if you're fighting anything with a physical resistance, which nothing in this army has. Plus 8 leadership, that's useful if things are low on leadership, but everything's pretty fresh here, so not really any leadership problems. Causes fear and terror. Everything in this enemy army has fear already, so they're not affected by that, and terror is only going to be useful when they're low on leadership. So again, this spell is completely useless to use right now. He's done it again, the cheeky sausage. He then goes to use Spirit Leech, which is a good spell to use, only he uses it on the wrong kind of target, putting it on some spearmen, where this spell, if we look at the tooltip, as it says, strong versus characters and single combatants, weak versus multiple combatants, so units essentially. So Icefang's crime here is just that he's not reading his tooltips, and I know, Icefang, you're kicking yourself right now. It's okay. You can be forgiven given the absolutely gargantuan amount of stuff there is to learn in this game, and also the game's lack of telling you how to use it all properly. And he did rotate his front line there to be more uphill, so that's like I mentioned earlier. And generally, he does seem to have a pretty good grasp of the controls, and his micro is pretty quick. He's moving his stuff around, he knows his hotkeys, so he's got the more physical side of battles down. It's now just gaining that knowledge to know what all your spells and abilities do, what all your units are for. And with that kind of stuff, don't be afraid to pause the battle and just read what a tooltip says this spell or ability is for before you use it. Make sure you understand where it's good and going to be useful. Now, at this point in this battle, look at the favor bar. He's due to win this battle, even though it's a little bit messy, but he's not happy with it. So he's going to concede defeat here and do a rematch, which is something I absolutely recommend doing. If you're not happy or you feel like you could have done it better, or if you lose and you feel like you could have won if you just did something else, then go ahead, try again. There's nothing wrong with that. You see me do it all the time on streams. Sometimes I'll lose a battle, but I feel like there's a way I could win it, so I'll try again, try different tactics, try a different strategy, and what do you know, I'm going to be learning things from that. Now, just to quickly go through this replay of the battle, he does a similar thing again. He's changed his position though. I think he was probably better off on the hill where he was, just with better position of his artillery. Here he's getting the full length of his artillery fire though, which is good. Although they're somewhat in the trees again. God damn it, why does he love those trees? Focusing those crypt horrors again, they're getting mashed up, so that's good. But he's also again trying to use his spears on the dogs. He's also going to push out to try and catch the dogs with his spearmen, which is never going to happen. They're way faster than you. Just stay where you are and let them move around you, and you can just adjust to face them as they move around, rather than running out to meet them. You see the dogs have just run around the spearmen now, but he's got his hero there to intercept them, so that's going to stop them getting a hold of those handgunners at least. And props to him for using the Alt attack button there with his hero. If you just press attack, he'll try and shoot them, but he held Alt and it did a melee attack order instead. Nice use of that. Like I said, he's got good use of the hotkeys, and he is going to win this one a bit tidier than the previous attempt. Gets a nice little flank with some of his missiles, and he's even going to use a Spirit Leech on the Lord as he should. Nice. So, first battle is in the bag, didn't take too much damage at all. He then rolls on to the first settlement in this province that he needs to take, Dottenbach. Auto-resolves this one, which is fine. It's mostly zombies, so probably not a lot to learn from that one anyway. Moving on, he does a bit of recruiting, does his skill points, puts his items on, and then moves on to take the next settlement in the province, Wissenberg. He's got a couple of extra pistoliers now and some archers. Again, going to auto-resolve this one. He is, of course, making this for a video as well, so if he did play every battle, it would be a little bit boring for the video, so it's good that he's not playing every battle in this case. So, first province acquired. He's now going to look to take the second one, going for Fieldorf, and this is going to be a bit more of a challenge now. There's a bit of an army there. It's got a fair garrison, and he's predicted a valiant defeat, which means he's very close to a Pyrrhic victory. All he needs to do is besiege this for maybe 2 or 3 turns, and then that auto-resolve will probably change to a Pyrrhic victory, although he might lose some units. But he's going to go on the path to do this. He's going to start to build some siege equipment, hopefully take a few turns to wear them down, and he'll be good. Over the turn, though, it seems like he was now expecting to be able to get a victory, but he can't, and he maybe is a little confused why, perhaps. And I'm going to take a guess that he didn't know that health has actually come off the units, the enemy units over that turn, and if he does it another 2 or 3 turns, it's going to take more off, and then he'll probably be able to win. And in my opinion, this is what he should have done, just taking maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 more turns if you want to get more of a better victory so that you don't lose too many units or take too much damage. But instead, he's going to retreat here, and he's going to fall back and start recruiting a second army. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad idea, but of course the enemy can recruit as well. So while you're recruiting, the enemy's going to be recruiting too, and you're ultimately going to kind of stay in the same situation, potentially. Obviously, it depends what units you recruit, what they recruit, but yeah, that kind of plan doesn't always work out. Over the next couple of turns, though, he's actually now going to ignore that settlement, run straight past it, and go for the little Greenskins faction that holds another part of the province. Now, this isn't a complete no-no, but he is getting himself into another war here, and that can be a risky game. But he's going to go for it. He's marching on Steingart, sees an opportunity for another place he can maybe learn something, so he decides to fight this battle. He has a big ranged advantage with the cannons and the Hellstorm, plus a little bit of skirmish cap as well. My only major complaint with this battle is that he starts to move some of his infantry up to meet the enemy infantry, but he really doesn't need to. He's got the big ranged advantage. Literally just sit there with that artillery and blast them until they come to you. No reason to approach them. The biggest threat of this army is that one unit of Orc Boys, so he wants to just focus on taking that out, make sure the enemy missiles don't get to fire too much, and you're golden. So he gets that victory with pretty minimal losses, but now, as I mentioned, he's got himself into 2 wars, so he's got potentially 2 big armies to deal with. The Greenskins moving towards him here in the north, and also the Vampires recruiting in their settlement. But he is going to get a little bit lucky here as he goes to attack Fieldorf now with a second army. He is going to find that the garrison here has been beaten up somehow. I'm going to guess it's that Greenskin faction to the north, the Skull Smashers or whatever they're called. Perhaps they softened him up and allowed Icefang to swoop straight in. But hey, you can't complain. Sometimes you get lucky like this and it works out real nice. Now he's just got the one Greenskins army to deal with. But he's got pretty lucky again there too, because it looks like Averland have come along and taken that army out, freeing him up to just try and finish off the little army they have left. So another stroke of luck for him, but I'd still maintain you've got to be careful about how many wars you're getting yourself into. It can be very risky. Now, in terms of growing his province, he seems to be doing a pretty good job. He's got a growth building. He's going to get an income building here. He's got a trade building. The growth building is tier 3 and in a tier 5 settlement, but that's fine because you're going to get rid of that later anyways, because once the settlement's tier 5, you don't really need a growth building anymore, right? When it comes to skill points, though, we do have a few issues. Now, he's not hammering away at the blue line like old Remzi from the last video, but like Remzi, he is ignoring the red line so far and has ignored his law passive on his magic. The law passive is basically like a free spell that goes off every time you cast any other spell. So it's a free spell, and all it costs is one little skill point. This one will recharge your magic every time you cast a spell, so that means just more spells eventually. So always take your lore passives. They do different things for different magic laws, but they're pretty much all always useful to take. As for the red line, you want to put skill points into whatever kind of units you're using the most, and in this case he's got a lot of missile units, so he really should be buffing those up with those red line skill points and maybe his melee infantry. Now, to finish this faction off, he's going to go for Fort Sol, taking the auto-resolve on this because they can be a bit of a nightmare to fight with all the damage you're going to take. Plus, his army is a lot of missile infantry, which is really not good for attacking in a siege situation. Now, from turns 11 to 17, he actually lost the footage because the recording balked. He did replay those turns and record them for me, though, so I had something to show, but honestly, not a lot really happened over those turns to talk about anyway. So this we're seeing here is the replayed stuff, except that he now decides to go after the von Carsteins, which he did out of choice. It's the natural decision in this campaign to go and get rid of them, so that's fine. But somewhere in those turns, he got declared war on by Gorbad Ironclaw, the Greenskins all the way to the south. However, he can't remember precisely how that war came about. Now, I'm going to assume he didn't declare war on Gorbad, because why would you? He's nowhere near here. But maybe someone asked him to join a war against Gorbad, or maybe Gorbad just got big and pushed that way and is coming that way for him. But I assume it's the latter, as none of his potential allies are anywhere near Gorbad. Either way, it doesn't matter too much, that's just where we're at right now. As we get back into the actual footage, he's being attacked by a mostly zombie army, so not too dangerous, but a really good one to practice on as he is outnumbered. And he goes for a bit of a strange strategy in this one. He's using that bit of rock face there to have his missiles behind, and he's putting the spears at either edge to try and stop things getting round to those missiles. And then his 2 units of swords are just chilling in the middle by themselves there with the cav running around. Now, this is okay. I see what he's going for here. It's just breaking your army up into small little groups of units is usually not a great idea. Those spearmen are going to find themselves fighting probably 2 or 3 or 4 units all by themselves, and those swordsmen will eventually too. I think what I would have gone for here is maybe using this little bit of terrain, lining my boys up here as a front line and having my missiles just sat back here behind the ridge, shooting down on all those units fighting my boys, with the cav protecting the missiles. But nevertheless, he does get the job done. It is a bit of a Pyrrhic victory. His infantry takes a pounding, as I said, largely because they're probably broken up. They wanted to stay together, staying with that Lord and Hero as well. They're good for buffing the melee attack and melee defense and leadership of infantry, and those would have been best off sticking by the infantry, especially the warrior priest. But he gets in a good bit of hammer and anvil and eventually does get the job done, gets the victory. So, nice enough, a win's a win all the same. Now, over this next turn, he's going to get his military ally Talabecland come and ask him to join a war with the Fecundites. That's Festus to the north. Given that he's currently at war with 2 legendary lord factions, Gorbad and the von Carsteins, he should have said no to that war, but he said yes. So now he's in 3 wars, and I think this maybe highlights something that new players do, because Remzi did this as well. He's getting himself into too many wars, especially with strong factions. But we'll see later how that comes to affect him. For now, he's got a von Carstein army pretty much dead to rights right in front of one of his settlements. It's in force march, so it can't get away. He's got a stack and a half. I'm wondering why he's not jumping on this right now. He opts, though, to try for an ambush next to his settlement because he's actually pretty beaten up. I didn't realize at first. Then they come for him. He's going to get a Pyrrhic victory auto-resolve. This is a pretty tough battle, largely because of the amount of dogs and flyers that the enemy army has and the amount of missiles that he has. They are going to have an easy time disrupting all his missiles potentially, and plus they got a lot of heroes that he's going to struggle to deal with. And oh look, it's a disgusting map. What a surprise. So, in my opinion, he should just take the Pyrrhic on this one and take it on the chin, but old Icefang's strapping on his balls of steel and he's going for it. But he's quickly going to realize, what the fuck am I doing? This was a terrible idea. He's positioned himself in the middle of 2 kind of forests, so he's making it a little bit harder for himself because you can't see very well on these kind of tree-heavy maps. If you can sit in a clearing, do that so you can at least see what the hell you're doing, and also your missiles and artillery won't be blocked by trees. Eventually he comes to realize this was a bad idea. He takes off his balls of steel, concedes defeat, and just reloads the save, which is absolutely fine. Like I mentioned earlier, I encourage this. Try stuff out. If it doesn't work out, just reload. Who cares? If you're learning the game, you've got to dive into these slightly more scary situations and kind of gauge where you're at. Okay, maybe this battle was too big. 40 units on either side. It's a lot to manage. Now he is going to go and finish off the rest of that army, but he is actually going to fight this as well, even though it's obviously going to be a clear victory. Still good little bits of practice here. One small mistake he's making, though, is that he's using his artillery as if they're one thing. He's got cannons and a Hellstorm rocket battery. And you'll see he selects them both here and then aims them at the same target. This is a mistake. I think the cannons should aim at these single entities, but the Hellstorms are basically going to do nothing to them. They should be aimed at infantry, namely, but maybe cavalry as well. Anything that's got a larger surface area, because Hellstorms are incredibly inaccurate. Also in this battle, it's kind of highlighting the problems with his army's composition. He's got mostly missiles in his army. He's got 4 units of archers, 3 handgunners, 2 pistoliers, and 2 artilleries. He did have 5 melee infantries, 3 swordsmen, 2 spearmen. Lost some of those though, so now he's only got the 2 swordsmen in this one. But basically here, he doesn't have enough melee infantry to protect all of his range stuff. His army ratio should probably be the other way around. He should have like 10 melee infantry units and then only 5 missile units. Because missile units are only as good as you make them be. If they only get to use a quarter of their ammo or half their ammo because they got attacked, well, they're not going to have got much done and won't be that useful, so you got to be able to protect them. However, his army composition might be better in auto-resolve because it assumes that the missile units got to use all of their ammunition, which typically they don't in a battle, so it's a better auto-resolve army, but not so good if you actually want to fight the battle, because you are going to find it a struggle to defend all of those missile units, especially against someone like the vampire counts, who have a lot of stuff that can disrupt missiles. Bats, dogs, flyers. But anyway, that's a subject I could probably bang on for another 3 hours about, but for now, he's getting the last of the vampire count armies in this area tidied up, at least until some more come along and appear. But now, disaster is starting to strike because Gorbad has arrived with a full stack. Actually, make it 2 and one of them's got a war with it down in the south corner there. And when he zooms out here, we can actually see how Gorbad is doing. He's got all this territory here, which to me is quite rare. Normally, the dwarves keep him in check. It looks like Karazakarak may have been killed off by the Crooked Moon, though. So for me, this feels rare for Gorbad to be doing this well. I don't know about you, but I've played the Elspeth campaign a few times, and I've never seen Gorbad come up this north. But regardless, he's here for Icefang, and he's in trouble. That war is now coming back to haunt him, and Gorbad is going to start tearing through his lands, taking his settlements left, right, and center. And there's not a great deal he can do. He's trying to get peace with Gorbad, but he's not having it. He goes to Karl, tries a bit of diplomacy to see if Karl will help him, but Karl's a fuck. He has no choice to try and put up a resistance, so he recruits a few more units, makes himself a second army, and prepares for the incoming assault. And then just as Gorbad's armies arrive on the steppes of Fieldorf, so does Festus over at Nuln. So it's looking like a little bit of a GG at this point, but I think the only thing he maybe could have done here to stop Gorbad was to give him Fieldorf, trade the settlement to Gorbad in exchange for peace. Maybe he would have taken it. But Icefang isn't done yet. He's pulling his main army back so it doesn't die in Fieldorf, which isn't a bad idea at all. Festus then goes after Nuln, but thankfully he can get the auto-resolve on that, so that saves him from Festus for now. One of Gorbad's armies eventually took Wissenberg, but he's coming back with Elspeth. He's going to reclaim that, so he's defeated one of the Gorbad armies here. Very nice. Icefang fighting back. Over the turn, though, Gorbad has been besieging Fieldorf. He's going to force the hand now. He's going to make him take that auto-resolve. And when he does, Gorbad is then going to move on to Wissenberg, which sadly for Icefang is pretty much going to be checkmate now, as he's got to beat 2 full greenskin stacks with just 1 of his. He's going to fight it, though. He's going down swinging. But it's a bit of a hopeless endeavor. There's just too many greenskins, and you got all the missiles. If he could use all of his ammo, then maybe he could win it. But I feel like it's probably an impossible fight, this one. Nevertheless, there we go for Icefang, a valiant effort. His biggest downfall, though, getting himself into too many wars. They've come back to bite him. He should have said no to the Festus War. There was no reason to take that one. We're still not really sure how Gorbad War came along, but he probably shouldn't have gone after the von Carsteins if he was already at war with Gorbad. He should have checked that situation out and seen how that was going to play out rather than rushing into a second war. Other than that, his main issue was just not reading those tooltips of spells and abilities and knowing what they were for. Just take your time to read those, and for the love of fucking Jesus, get out the trees. Why are you in the trees again, man? Get out the trees. His artillery's in the trees again. But yeah, like I said, pause the game, read the tooltip of a spell or ability, think about how that could actually be useful, check the targets it's supposed to be used on. Is it good against single entities, infantry? Is it a damage spell? Is it a debuff? Is that going to be useful right now, or should I wait for a better opportunity? There's a lot to take in and to learn with all of that, but you've got to start somewhere, right? So pause the game, check them out, make sure you know what they're doing. And maybe the only other thing was the skill points. Get some of those skill points in the red line. They buff up your army. They make them more powerful. You could have made all these missile units do more damage, reload faster, whatever else. There we go. Thanks again to Icefang for sending this footage. I appreciate you being willing to do this. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, do check out the YouTube memberships or the Patreon. If you missed the first one of these, here's that. Otherwise, I will see you in the future.